Let's take a look at the syllabus for this semester. So you can see Diablo Valley College, BioSci 140. Here's my email if you ever need it. I always tell students, think about the In-N-Out that's close to campus. Their signature burger is a double-double. So when you think of my last name, Hoffman, 2 F's, 2 N's, double-double. So like most other people at DVC, first initial, my first name, my last name at dvc.edu. So J Hoffman, Hoffmann, at dvc.edu. Everybody has the same syllabus. Yours might be slightly different, where it's going to say 2683 or 8446. But since we're all online, it doesn't make a difference in terms of the syllabus. Course information, it's a 5-unit class. If we were in face-to-face, it would be 3 hours of lecture and 6 hours of lab per week. Course description, we're going to understand the physiological mechanisms of the human body. Emphasis will be given to regulatory mechanisms on cell and organ system levels, employing chemical, mathematical, and physical principles. Laboratory section will focus on application and analysis of major physiological principles. We'll use molecular technologies, bioelectronics, computer analysis, and or live organisms. Most of those live organisms would be us, to be honest. Our course will be 100% asynchronous online. That means there are no campus meetings. There's no requirements to be regularly available at a specific time or day. Content will be posted, so we won't be delivering it live because there are no requirements in terms of scheduling. You will have to meet regular deadlines for assignments, but you can access them and complete them at your convenience. We'll have some assessments that must be completed on particular days. Sometimes assessments will be open for a week or so. Other times they'll just be open for a little less than a day. And we'll kind of see that as we go through. There are 2 major prerequisites for this course. You need BioSci 139 or 120. So that's the human anatomy or the anatomy physiology combined 1 semester course we have here at DVC, or the equivalent from some other college. It doesn't have to be at DVC. And you also need a chem prerequisite, that's 107, which is a kind of like developed class that they've had just for the last year or two at DVC, which is basically a nursing major's allied health chemistry, or 108 or 109 or 120. You can also have a year of high school chemistry that you could have completed to fulfill that requirement. We have required textbooks. We'll look at them in more detail later. We decided to go with a free book, OpenStax Anatomy and Physiology. It's a good book, I think, and it's free if you get the PDF version, or you can also get the Kindle version. The problem I have with it is it combined anatomy and physiology, and that does present some problems with just the student grabbing the book and reading, because some of that stuff we're not going to worry about because it's things you should have worried about or have known in anatomy. We also have a lab book in the bookstore. It's called the Human Physiology Lab BioSci 140L, which doesn't even exist. DVC Biology. It's a stupid title, to be honest. It's actually the Fox Laboratory Guide for Human Physiology. It's the 15th edition, which is really the 13th edition. It's hard to explain. But here's the thing. This book is in the bookstore with a customized version that's on different paper and only the sections we use in class for a lot less than you'd get it if you bought the entire book new, although it's probably 80% of it. And then we also have a physiology lab supplement that was recently revised, but it's not much different than the 2018 version, sorry. So you can use that one as well. So again, we'll have more information about the books later in this document. My office hours. We have not been told what the requirement for office hours are. I'm going to assume that they're what we normally have for the school year, as they're not supposed to change. Obviously, though, since we're not on campus, I don't have an office. So what we've done is we've made many of the office hours email office hours. During email office hours, the response time tends to be fairly short because I will be online and answering emails as they come in. Now, I may be answering or dealing with other students, and so we'll establish a queue where in the event there are multiple questions, I'll just take them, basically first come, first serve. Those will be 8 to 9, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right. I'll also, so that's where there's one email, one asterisk. Also have Zoom sessions. The Zoom will be at 9 to 9:30, so right after the office hour on Monday, and then Tuesday evening, and you kind of see why Tuesday evening works. One, I would like to have an evening office hour anyway for students that work during the day. But basically, I'll be on Zoom, and you can pop in. And if I got students there asking questions, I'm not going to say, "Oh, it's 8:30, I'm done." We will, try to get them all answered. And hopefully, I don't think there's much I'd have to do on Tuesday night at 8:30, where I'd have to bail on you guys. So those are kind of the way they are. I don't think they'll change unless I hear different from the administration. For grading, your grade is based solely on the number of points you earn during the semester. This will actually be covered in a lot of detail for the first lab. But we have 4 lecture exams, 100 points each, so that's 400. That's half the total points in the class. Total points of class is 800. We have a comprehensive final exam. That's the last day of class for us. That's 100 points. We have 4 25-point lab quizzes, so that would be 100 points. We have what I'm going to call checkups. Checkups are weekly quizzes, homeworks, things like that go into this overall pot of points. In terms of class points, it's worth 75. So about 10%, a little less than 10% of the total. But in reality, when you add up all those points, you'll have way more than 75 points. My guess it'll be somewhere between 250 and 350 by the time we're all done this semester. And it's only worth 75 class points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the percentage you have on those assignments and multiply that by 75, and that would be your number of points. So as an example, if you had 100%, you'd have 75. If you had 80% average on those assignments, then we would take 80% of 75, which would be 60. So you get 60 points on that, and so on. So they're meant to have you keep up with the course. They're meant to pay attention and test yourself weekly, and anything that goes into that category is called a checkup. So it's kind of checking your knowledge. So we'll call it checkups. We also have these Jlr assignments. There's 5 of them. They occur very early in the semester, and the idea is they're going to help prepare you for the lab report. We also have a physiology project. You'll do a paper and a video towards the latter portion of the semester. So that's worth 50 points, and if you add it all up, that's a total of 800 points available in the class. In terms of letter grades, if you have to get an A, then you need at least 90%. The number of points would be 720, right? So if you need an A, get at least 720, and there's no questions asked. B would be 640, and a C would be 536. So there's that. A few things about lecture exams to let you know. Lecture exams obviously will emphasize lecture material. You're responsible for the material covered in the notes. I'll provide lecture notes on Canvas, even if they're not discussed in class, which means on the videos. You should use your textbook for reference and as a visual guide, along with the PowerPoint slides as we view the class. And your class notes should be the main study guide. Your class notes should come from taking notes in the video, just like you would in face-to-face class during lecture. Exam questions typically consist of multiple choice and matching, and then a written section. Anytime you are asked to do some sort of calculation, you're going to show your work. You will be asked to physically write out the answers to short answer and essay questions during a timed portion of an exam. So you will basically have an exam which I envision in two parts. The first part or second part, depending on which order you did them, would be a number of multiple choice questions where you would have a limited time to do that. And then once you finish that, or you could do it in the reverse order, where you had essay questions and short answer questions, you would physically write them out and then submit a PDF file to Canvas in the amount of time you were given. So that's how we're going to do it. Lecture exams, again, emphasize the lecture material. You're responsible for PowerPoint slides. You're responsible for your class notes. That's, I think, the best way to do it. I'm going to try to require you to synthesize and apply concepts to new scenarios and situations. So basically, rote memorization is not going to necessarily going to get you as far as it would in anatomy. And I think this is one of the reasons why students struggle with physiology sometimes, is some of the skills that made you successful in anatomy do not necessarily make you successful in physiology. And part of that is, you know what, if you memorize everything in anatomy, you generally do pretty well. But in physiology, you need to be able to apply it and understand it, and I think that's part of it. I'll tell you the other secret to doing well in physiology is understanding the level of detail. And the vast majority of students, especially initially, lack the demonstration that they know the detail on exams and homework assignments and papers. And constantly, I ought to just buy a stamp that says lacks detail because I see that all the time. And you need to be able to understand it and explain it back to the level of detail that we've discussed in class that are on the notes. All exams will be administered through Canvas and must be taken on the scheduled date. You can see those scheduled dates at the end of this document. I'll show them to you. Because we have varying ability to be in class, because that's probably why we took this class, I'm going to make the exams from 9 a.m. Until 11:59 p.m. on the days they're available. Okay. There are times they must be completed in one sitting, and that's again each half of the exam. I envision one probably being a little longer than the other, but you're going to have to take a couple hours to do those, just like you would in class. Once you open the exam, the timer will start and it can't be stopped. You can't close it. You can't come back to it. If it ends up being closed, it will save your answers, but you cannot go back in and redo it. Resources. This is a big one. Because I think the vast majority, maybe all of you, would follow the rules that we set, that would be a good thing. Although there's a possibility that someone doesn't. And if someone doesn't follow the rules, then they have an unfair advantage for the people that are doing what they're supposed to. And I want to reward the people that are doing what they're supposed to, while not doing that for the people that aren't. So what we've done is we've set what we think is a fair bar. You can use calculators and any course material on an exam. All right, but I'll be honest with you, it's not as good as it sounds, because I'm going to give you a very limited time to do the exam. I want you to study, know, understand the exam, and be able to do it like you would in class, but I'm not going to give you enough time to go back and look things up. As a matter of fact, you can probably have enough time to look very few things up by the time it's done. My advice would be, when you open an exam, to go through it and mark the answers, make notes of what you need to go back to, and then if you have any extra time, go back and look at those questions. But it's going to go really fast. We've also implemented some other things for the exams to try to reduce the amount of cheating that would happen. Sorry about that, but Adobe just decided to kick me out, so I had to re-sign in, and we'll come back. So where were we? We were talking about exams. So the exams are designed to try to limit the amount of people doing the things they're not supposed to do. They're supposed to, in many ways, mimic what you would do in class by making you understand things and not be able to look it up. So the bottom line is you can use your notes, you can use your slides, you can use the notes I provide, you can use any handouts, but you will not have time to use them and refer to them very much, because the time is going to be severely limited on the exams. So it's good practice. We'll try to practice on some of the checkups that you have earlier, and we'll make it go pretty fast. Makeups are not generally given unless under extraordinary circumstances. So there's not a whole lot of provision in the class for makeups. You're expected to be able to do the exams as they're scheduled. So that's something to think about. Final exam, comprehensive. It potentially encompasses everything you learn in the lecture portion of the class. It is scheduled for Wednesday, December 9th. I'm pretty sure that's the correct date, and it'll be similar to the previous lecture exams. Laboratory quizzes will emphasize the this is a mistake right here. This should say laboratory material, not lecture. So I'm going to fix that. So that emphasizes the laboratory material. You're responsible for the material covered in the notes, even if it's not discussed in class. We have PowerPoints. You should take notes on videos we provide. So it's very similar to that. Despite what this error says, the material that we study and look at in lecture, even though it's sometimes very similar, if not the exact same stuff, we look at in lab stays in lecture, and the stuff that we do in lab stays in lab. So you should never have to grab your notes for lecture and use them for lab. Any of the crossover, like the big place we see crossover is in the blood section. A red blood cell that we talk about in lecture is the same as a red blood cell we talk about in lab. For some of the other things, the crossover is not nearly as tight. As an example, we'll talk about homeostasis frequently in lecture. We'll use a water bath as an example of homeostasis, at least some parts of it, to show homeostasis. But we'll never talk about a water bath in the lecture portion. So you study the lab for lab and the lecture for lecture, and you should be fine. Laboratory quizzes consist of typically multiple choice and matching. Also typically have some written, fill in short answer calculation type questions. Again, we'll emphasize the content from the supplement and the manual, the videos on Canvas. Like everything else, anything that was assigned, textbook, handouts, homework, you're responsible for. We'll cover the lab exercises and related concepts. Some of it will require interpretation of analysis of results. And again, rote memorization will not be sufficient. All exams will be administered by Canvas again. To accommodate that, they'll be available from 9 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on the day they're available. It'll be exact same as lecture. What I've done, though, is because the lecture material is the lecture material, and while there's some crossover, the lab material is the lab material. So it doesn't make sense to have them both the same day. In addition, there's some advantages to having them separated. So what I did is I made your major assessments, lecture, lab, final exam, all those assessments are on a Wednesday. Right? Not all the same Wednesday, but we have 16 weeks in the semester. There are 16 Wednesdays, and 9 of them you will take an exam or something. So on 4 of them you'll have lab quizzes. On a different 4, a week after the lab quiz, you'll have a lecture exam, and then the last day of class, which was December 9th, you'll have the final. So there's an old movie from the 1980s called Big Wednesday. It's actually a very cool surfing movie. And so just think in your head, Big Wednesday. We have a lot of things to do on Wednesdays. And you need to be available between 9 and 11:59 at night, 9 in the morning, 11:59 at night, to take those exams on those Wednesdays. Okay. Here's a little explanation of checkups. I mentioned them before. There's a whole bunch of little assignments that we will do that will go into your total score. In the second week, we'll have weekly checkups. Those will be basically quizzes that we take on Canvas. Again, I'll show you the schedule that will say what it is. I've already explained the points. There'll be way more than 75 points, but you'll get the percentage of 75 based on your percentage of your checkup assignments. There'll also be some homework, especially at the beginning, that will go into that grade. You have a physiology project. You pick the topic. You choose any aspect of human physiology. You need to do a research and a research paper and a video. The video has to be self-made. The research paper is supposed to be a fairly extensive review of your selected topic. I want you to communicate college-level physiological and scientific information, about 1,500 to 3,000 words, which means it's about 6 to 12 pages. So I want 6 to 12 pages of normal font, normal margin, normal spacing work that you turn in. And then you're going to summarize the key physiological components of your report, and you're going to do that in a 5 to 6 minute video presentation. So each one of those is worth 25 points. The video is a week after the paper, so that you have a chance to summarize it. And part of the idea of that is forcing you to take a body of information and narrow it down. We also have what is called the journal article laboratory report, and then a laboratory report. The journal article laboratory report is JALR for short, so you see it over here. And it's basically a series of assignments that require you to read, analyze data, draw conclusions, get more familiar with scientific research. Once we kind of do that, then you're going to apply some of those skills and write a lab report. There are 5 Jlr assignments. They're due really early in the semester. I think 1 and 2 are due the second week, and 3, 4, and 5 are due the third week. And I just want to get them done for a bunch of reasons, so I don't have to worry about them later. And then you have a laboratory report that's worth 50 points and will be competitively graded. That means that you need to do quality work to get a quality grade. Written assignments may be analyzed with Turnitin. Turnitin determines the originality of your text based on a database. Basically tries to limit the cheating or even inadvertent copying of information. So if you have an assignment that is higher than 30% in terms of what they call similarity, then it won't be considered. And then if it's after the due date, I'll take it, but it'll be severely downgraded because it's saying that 30% at least, whatever number that is that they give you, is not your own work. And so I can't give you full credit for it because it's not your own work. We'll talk more about that as we go on. Late assignments. You'll see the schedule again, but I've set it up where we have a due date. And the due date is typically going to be a Wednesday or a Thursday in class. It depends on what it is and what it involves and when you're supposed to actually look at the other information in class. But that's it. And I know that sometimes things happen, especially now with the way the world is. You may need a little extra time. So what I've set up for, except for lecture and exams and laboratory quizzes and obviously the final, is I have 3 dates on a calendar, or up to 3 dates, I guess is the best way to say it. You have a due date. That's the day it's due. That's the day you should turn it in. That's the day that if you're working along in a normal semester where we would be in class on either, Monday and Wednesday or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you only have a limited time where you could turn it in. Well, theoretically, since we're now on Canvas, you could turn it in, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So what I've done is I've allowed, when I've had the ability to have a few days of grace period, meaning that even though something might be due on Wednesday or Thursday, I may give you until Sunday night to turn it in without any penalty. Once you get to the penalty date, anything after the penalty date, then you'll be assessed, and Canvas does this automatically the way I've set it up. You're going to lose 5% an hour, 0.5% an hour, that it's late. So that's 12% penalty per day. And then once we go beyond the expiration date, I'm not going to give you credit for turning that in. So there are, again, certain deadlines you have to meet to stay up in the class, not get behind, because we're going to move pretty fast sometimes. Lecture and exams and laboratory quizzes, you're not allowed to be late, and you'll get 0 credit for them because they won't be available. Grade corrections, if you got a problem with your grade in a particular assignment, because it's all posted automatically once I've done it on Canvas, once it's posted, you got 5 days to tell me there's an issue. You can't tell me, oh, I needed 2 extra points back from the assignment we did this first week of school, and it's last week of school. So let me know if you have any questions or problems about your grading. In terms of that, no upfront, there's no individual extra credit. Now's the time to start thinking about your grade. So if you end up with a grade you're not totally happy with at the end of the semester, you're stuck with that grade, unfortunately for you, and you can't, do a paper or anything else. You are stuck with the total points you earn. Because it's an online class, right, you need to be active in terms of participation. I expect you to be there. I expect you to show up. I expect you to be doing your work and progressing through the course. Again, I have a calendar that I've set up that would be very similar to what we're doing if we're in a face-to-face course. Once you're enrolled, it's your responsibility to drop the course. If you don't drop it and you quit showing up, and for whatever reason I miss it or don't drop you, then you'll receive an F in the course. Once we go past the last day to take a W, by state law, I have to give you a letter grade in the course. And by DVC policy, that letter grade can be A, B, C, D, or F. So if you haven't been there for the last month because you didn't take care of what you're supposed to take care of, then I'm pretty certain you'd get an F. A couple class policies that I believe are important. In this online classroom, we're trying to be inclusive and supportive in our community. I'll do my part to ensure the class is respectful and safe and friendly and interactive and maybe interesting and fun even. But we want to be creative and supportive in this environment. So there are some rules. Those rules are every student in this classroom, regardless of personal history or identity, is a member of this group. Your experiences are important and you can share them as they become relevant to the class. No student in the class is ever expected or believed to speak for all members of the group. You have the right to determine your own identity. You have the right to be called whatever name you wish. However, for assignment purposes, I need your legal name on it so I know who to give credit to for those things. You can choose your pronouns. There's a handout that we're going to choose our pronouns on, and you're able to adjust those things at any point. During Zoom, if you show up for Zoom meetings, which are all entirely optional, you have the ability to change your name on your Zoom. You have the ability to not show your video. You have the ability to mute your microscope. You have the ability video. You have the ability to post and chat. You have the ability to send me private chat. So there's a lot of leeway you have with this. And also, if there's any barriers to, your learning, let me know and we'll figure it out. Okay. We can't tolerate disruptive behavior. What is it? I have a colleague that says it's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to be disagreeable. And so that's kind of the idea there. Course communication will be Canvas announcements and email. You're responsible for that, so you have to check that regularly. I will update course content and due dates and try to stay ahead of everything at least a little bit. I was hoping to be a little farther ahead than I am, but I think I can do it. And if there's something you can't find, you're missing, you think, oh, I thought this was posted. Maybe it's not. Maybe I forgot to push the publish button. Maybe I haven't done it because I thought I did it. So, feel free to ask and find things. If you can't find things where you think they should be, there'll be a lot of announcements. I know some students hate it because they're really organized, but other students love it because, oh, I didn't know I had this due to this week or today or whatever. Try to keep you informed of other things on campus and resources and a few other things that I think are important. So pay attention to the announcements. The announcements can be found at the top of the homepage, but the big place is the announcement section. So when you open Canvas on the left-hand navigation column, if you just hit announcements, you can go see them. And I think they'll be important. Since one of the main ways we'll do this in terms of communication is email, I think we need to have a little email policy. When I send you stuff, I will send you stuff either to Insight or through Canvas in their inbox. Sometimes it's easier to do Canvas, sometimes it's easier to do Insight. Canvas has some limitations, Insight email has some limitations. And actually, if you communicate with me, I prefer you to use your personal email because it just makes it easier to respond. It makes it easier to attach stuff. Or if I want to, put in an image. It just doesn't work very well on Canvas. There's a whole bunch of other issues. So your normal email works fine for me. I understand, though, if you don't want to clutter your personal email with school stuff and keep them separate, that's fine. You can use Insight, you can use Canvas to do it, but whatever works easiest for you and you're most likely to see the response, that's what you probably should do. Email is great for brief things, for pointing out errors or missing items, asking about materials. Focused questions are good for email. Content questions are okay if they're not asked in too complicated things. It's often best if you have a question to tell me what you think the answer is, so I can try to diagnose the source of confusion. And if I can be more helpful and limit the back and forth initially, it's going to be better for everyone concerned. What's not a great question is, hey, James, what's the meaning of life, right? So when you do emails, it's probably a good idea to try to have a professional tone, try to have, all the elements of communication, and try to use appropriate grammar, things like that. I know sometimes, would misspell stuff or things come up, but I think that, getting used to that, most of you want to move on to some sort of professional career. That's why you're here. So starting to kind of act like that will probably help. My response time officially is within 24 hours, Monday through Thursday. To be honest, I will respond 9 times out of 10 at least, significantly faster than that. If you send something over the weekend, which is now sort of considered Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll get back to you certainly by Monday morning, but again, probably much earlier. One of the issues is, though, on days we have exams, whether they're lab quizzes or lecture exams, I will not respond to content questions between, well, I guess the best way to say it is I won't respond to content questions while the exam is going on. So I'm going to start the exams once my office hours are done on Wednesdays. And again, if you think back, the Zooms were on Monday and Tuesday, so it gives you an opportunity to ask questions then, and that's why I made it Tuesday night, because you might figure out you need to know more stuff. For Zoom, we have optional Zoom meetings and office hours. I'll have, some Zoom meetings that we'll schedule if you want to, show up and ask questions, things like that. They may have to be password protected. If I do, the password will be built into the link, so it'll automatically link if you have the right link. Sometimes for privacy purposes on Zoom, I will password protect something if I don't want people popping in. Like if we're talking about, student's grade, one-on-one on Zoom, I would password protect it so that person was the only person that had the link. Things like that. Again, on Zoom, you can change your name, you can hide your video, you can mute your microphone, you can ask questions in chat, you can send private chat, whatever you're most comfortable with. Know that Zoom sessions, I may record them and post them on Canvas. Good Zoom etiquette, and most of you know this, is to mute your microphone when you're not asking questions, so it limits the extraneous noise. And there's the link for Zoom down here that I'll use unless it's password protected, then that won't work anymore. A little more on textbooks. We have a reference textbook. That's the OpenStax Anatomy and Physiology. There's a free PDF version. It's actually on Canvas, but you can download it from OpenStax. You can also get a free Kindle version from Amazon. Those electronic copies are free. You can order print copies from Amazon or a bookstore. I think Amazon, if you want a soft cover, is like $41. If you want a hard cover, it's like $49 or something. The bookstore has, I think, a hardcover for $55. So, they're not nearly as expensive as the textbook that I, had last semester, which was $250 new, I think, somewhere close to that. So use whatever version works best for you personally. We also need the 2 laboratory textbooks I talked about. The supplement, I have a free PDF copy that's available on Canvas. Again, you can download it, or you can buy a hard copy that you can purchase from the bookstore, about $25. I put it together and things. I don't get any money for it at all. I try to make it as cheap as possible. So you can decide whether you want it for free or not. So the first 2 things are free if you want a PDF or electronic version of them. The lab manual, what we call sometimes Fox, I mentioned a little bit before. It's a customized version that they have in the bookstore of this book here, A Laboratory Guide to Human Physiology. It's Fox, it's the 13th edition, which is really the 15th edition, which is really the second 13th edition. It's kind of confusing. But you can get it on online, but it's pretty expensive. I think it's like 200 and something bucks new. I actually saw a cheaper price from Amazon the other day. So I recommend getting it from the bookstore. When I looked the other day, it was $93. But the full version at Amazon was almost $200, so it's literally twice as much. So get that from the bookstore. It's not mine, it's a publisher's version, so I can't give the PDF. I have no bearing on that one. But if you get all this, and you get this from the bookstore for less than $100, and get the PDF version, so you get all the textbooks for $100 for the class, so that's not too bad. Sorry. Couple things you're going to need to be able to do. And again, I'm just going to go through these really quick. Regular use of email. Figure out Canvas. We're going to have a little assignment to do that. You're going to have to view online lectures and other videos, typically posted to YouTube. You have to view other course material, Word, PowerPoints, PDFs. You're going to have to use a word processor or data processing software. You're going to have to use a microphone on your computer probably if you're going to have the tutoring or show up for office hours. And again, you're going to have to use Zoom to communicate if you want to go that route. So therefore, you have technical requirements. You're going to need some high-speed internet access. You're going to need, whether it's wired or Wi-Fi, you're going to have access to that. Also, per the class notes, you're going to need a computer with at least 1 gigabyte of storage. The reason being is we're going to use a computer program called BioPack that you're going to have to load on your computer to be able to do some laboratory work with. And it's a big program, and that's why you need that. Canvas resources, if you want to look at resources, I'm not going to go through them, but you can go and look them up. Canvas also has a helpline. It's actually pretty good. Bunch of other places that you can get support. We'll talk more about tutoring as it comes up, but we have a biological health and science tutoring lab that is free, and they'll post Zoom number and office hours. We just need to make sure they have somebody for 140. There's also a net tutor that provides free tutoring. There's a DSS program. So this DSS program helps students with disabilities. Sometimes they're physical, sometimes they're learning disabilities, and just tries to help students with accommodations and things like that. Some of you might be familiar with it. If you're working with a counselor, let me know so we can figure out how to accommodate you. Academic integrity is a big one. We ask that you do what you're supposed to do in class and not cheat. So academic dishonesty is a number of different things, and it basically diminishes the quality of scholarship at DVC. and it basically hurts the students that conduct themselves honestly. Here's examples of it. Cheating, tampering, fabrication, plagiarism, or assisting are all examples of academic dishonesty. I have high expectations of you for the class. I know you can do it, though, because I've had students that have done it in the past. So you can read that. Here's just an example of time commitment. It's a lot of time that you should be figuring to do this. So I just, an average week, you're going to need probably 3 to 5 hours of looking at videos and taking notes and things like that. For lab assignments, you probably want to spend a couple hours on that. For the online quizzes and homework assignments, you probably want to spend 3 hours. Now, as you get it closer to your paper or video or lab report, probably going to take more time. It's going to take less time during other weeks, but probably average 3 hours. And then probably 5 hours of what I'm going to call non-mandated time to actually study or catch up on things. Stay up with the class, follow those due dates that I'm going to show you in a second. A couple other things, take responsibility for your education, right? Have high expectations of yourself and, put in effort into the course. Challenge yourself. Don't get discouraged. You're going to have some discouraging moments in class, I am sure. Learning requires effort and a lot of discomfort sometimes. This is one of my favorite quotes. Be willing to take risks, tolerate ambiguity and frustration. All right, so understand the world is not black and white, and physiology especially is not black and white. Be willing to make mistakes and see errors as an opportunity to learn. We'll give you opportunities to make errors and learn, especially for low stakes stuff, and hopefully that will make you better prepared for the higher stakes stuff. Learn how you learn, right? Certain people, and hopefully at this point in your college career, you have an idea that maybe you learn better by visually doing stuff or writing it out personally or talking with other people, whatever it is, right? And then once you know what you need to do to be successful, then do that to be successful. I've talked about this a couple of times. Study to learn, not memorize, right? Biology is a new vocabulary, so you're going to have to do that. Actually review your stuff, work in groups. One of the big ones, manage your time, be realistic. I had a student years ago that was taking, when you could, anatomy, physiology, and micro all the same time, same semester, and also had a family in a part-time job. And she said, well, it'll work out if I can just sleep 4 hours a day, right? You cannot realistically sleep 4 hours a day for an extended period of time, especially the whole semester. So, manage your time, be realistic. Your grade, to a large extent, is based on the quality of your work, not the quantity of your work, so make sure you have high quality. Be a professional, right? Most of you aspire to be a health professional of some sort, whether it's a dental field, a rehabilitative field, or medical field, or graduate school, nutrition, whatever it is. Start acting as professionals. Disclaimer: if we screwed something up, we'll fix it, basically. And also, if something in this syllabus says something different than the college policies prevail. You can read the learning objectives here for laboratory. Here's the course content for lecture and lab as well. You can read those. Here's the recommended lecture schedule. So basically I set this up for 8/24 and 8/26. So this is the first Monday. First Monday, theoretically, for lecture, you should do P1S1, introduction. That's part 1, section 1. Everything for the first exam will be at P1, and then the subsequent different lectures, and that would be the section number. So the first lecture is P1S1 Introduction, second lecture is P1S2 Biomolecules. Also, you have these X1s. There's only two of them right there, and one's on cells and one's on basic chemistry. So those are the things that you should have already known from other things. This gives you the assignments due, which is sort of right, but I'll show you a better way to look at assignments. And these are the labs and the lab supplement that we're doing. So that's what we're looking at there. And you can kind of go through and see our first lab exam is on Wednesday, the 16th of September, and then the lecture exam's a week later. And then we just, see stuff. Here's the lab report due, exams, papers, videos, exams. So what I want you to kind of get the idea is pretty much every Wednesday, so that's why I call it Big Wednesday, every Wednesday, you got something to do and turn in or something. So kind of look at that. What I did here is I took the lecture topics and correlated them to the OpenStax textbook. So for the introduction section, right, that is in OpenStax 1.1 to 1.5. For the cell stuff, it's in 3.1 and 3.2 of OpenStax and so on. So you have an easy cross-reference with the textbook. Here's the recommended lab schedule. So this is a little more detail. It's the same schedule here and here for lab and assignments, but the lab topics are just there so you can kind of see what we physically do. All right. And then the calendar, and again, you can read this. I'll explain it really quickly. We have due dates, penalty dates, and expiration dates. I mentioned those. So as an example, your first checkup number 1, is due on 9/3, right? So September 9th. You don't get a penalty until after September 3rd, it's due. You don't get a penalty until September 6th. And that first assessment will be, it's a checkup, will be on lecture P1S1, P1S2, P1S1X, P1S2X, okay? So those, also lab 1, 2, and 3. So those are what's going to appear on the first checkup. If you're following the course schedule, you would do it before 9/3. You can do it up until 9/6 without a penalty. After that, you have 2 days where you're accruing that 0.5% per hour. And then after September 8th, you can't do it anymore for any credit. It's gone. And so live by the due dates. Use the penalty dates if you have to, and stay away from the expiration dates, right, if you can. So this divides our Canvas checkups right here for this lecture and laboratory stuff. Here's homework and other checkups. So you have an orientation quiz due the first day of class to stay enrolled. There'll be hopefully a scavenger hunt available. There'll be a take-home checkup that you'll do. There'll be an anticipated exam questions checkup, and there might be other ones announced throughout the semester as well. Here's when the lecture exams are. Here's when the lab exams are. Notice no penalty or expiration date. They must be taken those days between 9 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. Here's the JLRs. Their due dates are on either 9/2 or 9/9. Here's the penalty date. Here's their expiration dates. Here's when the lab reports due, so on. The physiology paper, a week later the video. Important dates from a standpoint in terms of adding, dropping with a W, especially later in the semester. And then what I did is I took all the assignments that I know of up here, right, including the checkups, and then made one master list that's by date, right? So this is the one, this is the column right here that you want to look at. Sorry, let's do that. This due date. And that's what you want to do. So you want to make sure you pick the orientation by 8/24, the scavenger hunt checkup by 8/26, the take-home checkup by 9/2. And you'll notice on some days we got a lot of stuff to do, right? So we got 1, 2, 3 things there, and then a checkup to finish by 9:03, so on. So pay close attention to the due dates in case something happens. I think this is the good list to work from right here. All assignments sorted by due date, which is the last page of the syllabus. So I know that was long, but hopefully that answers a lot of the questions, but probably brings up some more questions in terms of what you're responsible for. So if you have questions about this, shoot me an email, pop into one of the Zoom office hours, and we'll get those questions answered.